The silence in the Defense Command Center stretched like a held breath as David's ship approached the Void Reaper fleet. On the main tactical display, 17 massive dreadnoughts hung in space like sleeping giants, their hulls absorbing light and radiating menace. Against them, David's vessel appeared as barely a speck, a single fighter craft that should have been vaporized the moment it entered their sensor range. Instead, something impossible happened. The Reapers stopped. General Thorne's mandibles clicked frantically as he adjusted the display parameters. That can't be right. Reaper ships don't just stop advancing. They don't pause for anything. But the tactical readout was clear. The entire Reaper fleet had come to a complete halt, their formation shifting subtly as if they were afraid. "They remember," Ambassador Kelt whispered, his yellow eyes wide with terrified awe. "After 20 years in the void, they remember him." Zara stared at the display, her heart's hammering against her ribcage. Somewhere in that tiny speck of light was her husband, the man who hummed while doing dishes and always made sure she had her favorite tea before important meetings. The man who had somehow become a legend that made nightmares flee into the darkness. The communication array crackled to life. "Nexus Prime Defense Command, this is Commander Marcus. I'm beginning my approach. Remember, no matter what you see, no matter what happens, do not send backup, do not attempt rescue, and do not record any of this." General Thorne leaned toward the communicator. "Commander, we're reading 17 dreadnoughts out there. Are you certain you don't want fleet support?" David's laugh came through the speakers, but it carried no humor. "General, if I thought a fleet could help, I would have brought one 20 years ago." The tactical display suddenly erupted in chaos. Energy readings spiked beyond measurement as David's ship accelerated toward the Reaper formation. But something was wrong with the sensor readings. The energy signature was coming from the ship itself, not any visible weapon systems. "What kind of drive system is that?" Dr. Vex muttered, frantically checking his instruments. "Those power readings are impossible. Nothing that small should be generating that much energy." "It's not the ship," Kelt said quietly. "It's him." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the first Reaper dreadnought opened fire. Beams of crimson energy, each one capable of cracking a planet, lanced out toward David's ship. They should have reduced it to fundamental particles. Instead, the beams simply stopped, as if they had struck an invisible barrier. The energy dissipated into harmless light, leaving David's craft untouched. "Impossible," General Thorne breathed. "Nothing can stop Reaper primary weapons. They ignore shields, armor, every known defense technology." But David was no longer simply defending. As his ship closed with the Reaper fleet, space itself began to distort around him. The darkness between stars rippled like water, and reality seemed to fold and twist in ways that hurt to observe. Then David drew his sword. Even through the vast emptiness of space, even at impossible distances, they could see it. The blade that had looked strange in their bedroom now blazed with light that put stars to shame. It was no longer just a weapon. It was something that violated the fundamental laws of physics simply by existing. "What is he?" Dr. Vex whispered. "Human," Zara said firmly, though her voice shook. "He's human." "No ordinary human," Kelt corrected softly. "Look at what he's becoming." David's ship had vanished entirely, replaced by something that the sensors couldn't properly register. It was roughly human-shaped, but thousands of times larger, a figure of living light that moved through space as easily as walking through air. The sword in its hand could have cleaved moons, and when it moved, space itself screamed. The first Reaper dreadnought died in a single stroke. The blade passed through its hull as if the ship were made of vapor, and the massive vessel simply ceased. Not destroyed, not exploded. It was as if it had never existed at all. Where a city-sized engine of destruction had been, Now there was only empty space and the fading echo of something fundamental being torn from reality. The remaining 16 Reapers opened fire simultaneously, their combined fury enough to sterilize entire star systems. The energies that struck the figure of light would have boiled away planets, but they had no more effect than gentle rain. David moved through their attacks with impossible grace, the sword weaving patterns that carved reality into new shapes. Each cut unmade another dreadnought. Each step forward sent waves of force through space that the monitoring stations felt as physical shocks. "He's not fighting them," General Thorne said in dawning comprehension. "He's editing them out of existence." "The sword," Kelt murmured. "I've heard legends about weapons like that, reality blades forged in the heart of dying universes. But they're just myths." "So were humans until 35 years ago," Zara replied. 5 Reapers, 4, 3. The remaining dreadnoughts began to retreat, their formation breaking as primal fear overrode their programming. But space folded around them, and David was everywhere at once. The sword struck from impossible angles, cutting through dimensions that had no names. When the last Reaper ship dissolved into nothingness, David hung alone in the void. The figure of light slowly condensed, shrinking back toward human proportions. The sword's blazing radiance dimmed until it was merely a blade that drank light instead of creating it. Then suddenly, David collapsed. His ship reappeared around him, a simple human fighter that now looked impossibly fragile after what they had witnessed. Warning lights flashed across the tactical display as the vessel's life support systems registered critical strain. "Medical emergency," Zara said, her training taking over. "General, we need a recovery team." "No," David's voice whispered through the communication array, weak but firm. "No teams. No rescue. Just give me a minute." The ship drifted in the debris field that had once been 17 Void Reaper dreadnoughts. But even the debris was wrong. Instead of wreckage, there were only geometric patterns of light slowly fading into darkness, as if the ships were being erased from history itself. "Commander Marcus," General Thorne said carefully, "your readings show severe physiological stress. Please accept medical assistance." "I'm fine," David replied, though his voice suggested otherwise. "Just tired. It's been a long 20 years. Gradually, his ship began moving again, turning toward Nexus Prime, with the careful movements of a pilot pushing against exhaustion. As it approached the station, Zara could see scorch marks on the hull that hadn't been there before, not from enemy fire, but from the impossible energies that David himself had channeled. "David," she said softly into the communicator. "I'm here." The pause before his response felt like an eternity. "Zara, I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize for saving 3 billion lives." "I'm not apologizing for that," he said quietly. "I'm apologizing for lying to you about who I am." An hour later, David's ship touched down in the station's docking bay. Zara was waiting for him, along with half the command staff, but she had insisted they keep their distance. When the hatch opened and David emerged, she barely recognized him. Her husband moved like an old man, each step carefully measured. His face was pale and drawn, his green eyes clouded with exhaustion that seemed to run deeper than physical fatigue. But when he saw her, he managed a weak smile. "Hello, beautiful," he said softly. Zara crossed the distance between them in 3 quick strides, her 4 arms wrapping around him in a careful embrace. He felt fragile against her, like holding a bird with broken wings. "Who are you?" she whispered against his ear. "Really?" David was quiet for a long moment, his arms tightening around her waist. 57 years ago, he said slowly. Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected something approaching from beyond the galactic rim. ships unlike anything in our databases, consuming every world in their path. By the time we understood what they were, the Void Reapers had already destroyed 6 civilizations. He pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes with an expression of profound sadness. Earth's government realized that conventional weapons would never be enough. So they started a project, an attempt to create something that could fight the Reapers on their own terms. They took volunteers from the military and tried to change them, enhance them beyond normal human limitations. Change them how? Zara asked, though part of her already dreaded the answer. Quantum manipulation at the cellular level, neural pathway enhancement, consciousness expansion beyond normal parameters. They were trying to create humans who could exist partially outside normal reality, who could use weapons and abilities that shouldn't be possible. David's voice dropped to barely a whisper. The process killed 43 volunteers before they got it right. I was number 44. The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. David, how old are you? Chronologically, 74. But the process changed that too. Time doesn't affect me the same way it affects normal humans. I age differently, heal differently, exist differently. She stared at him, trying to reconcile this revelation with everything she thought she knew. And the sword? A quantum reality manipulator. It exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously and can alter fundamental forces by cutting through the mathematical structures that define existence. David's smile was bitter. The scientists who created it called it magic. They weren't entirely wrong. General Thorne approached cautiously, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled emotion. Commander, what happened to the other enhanced humans? The rest of your unit? David turned to face him, and for a moment the exhausted man vanished, replaced by something ancient and infinitely sad. There was no unit, General. The process that created me was too dangerous to repeat. Too many volunteers died, and the ones who survived, most of them went insane. The human mind wasn't designed to perceive reality at that level. He looked out through the docking bay's observation windows at the space where the Reaper fleet had been. I was the only successful test subject. Earth's government decided that was enough. One weapon to hold in reserve against threats that couldn't be fought conventionally. They built me a ship, gave me the sword, and sent me out to patrol the rim. For 20 years? Dr. Vex asked. Alone? For 27 years, David corrected. I've been fighting things like the Reapers since I was 17. Species that exist outside normal reality, entities that feed on civilizations, artificial intelligences that have grown beyond their creator's control. Threats that the galaxy never hears about because I eliminate them before they reach inhabited space. Zara felt tears she didn't know she was shedding. And 7 years ago? 7 years ago, I decided I'd had enough. David's voice carried a weight of infinite exhaustion. I'd spent 30 years alone in the dark, fighting monsters that no one else could see. I was tired of being a weapon. I wanted to be human again. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite everything she now knew about his capabilities. So I faked my death, destroyed my official records, and retired to civilian life. I thought if I could just live quietly, tend a garden, maybe fall in love. His voice broke slightly. Maybe I could remember what it felt like to be normal. But you kept the sword, Ambassador Kelt observed. David nodded grimly. Because I knew threats like this might return, and because I knew that if they did, no one else could stop them. General Thorne stepped forward, his massive frame radiating respect. Commander, we had no idea humans had made such sacrifices for galactic security. Why keep it secret? David's laugh was hollow. General, what do you think would happen if the galaxy knew the truth? If everyone understood that there's a human walking among them who can unmake reality with a sword? How long before fear replaced gratitude? How long before every species started wondering if they were safe from me? The command center fell silent. Looking around at the assembled faces, Zara could see the answer in their eyes. Fear was already creeping in, despite the gratitude for their salvation. "So you hid," she said softly. "You gave up everything to protect people who would never know what you'd sacrificed." "I gained everything," David corrected gently. "I gained you. I gained a normal life, friends, peace. For 7 years, I was just David Marcus, cultural advisor and part-time gardener. It was the happiest period of my life. And now?" David was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands as if seeing them clearly for the first time in years. "Now the Reapers know I'm still alive. Word will spread to other threats beyond the rim. They'll start probing again, testing our defenses, looking for ways to strike while avoiding me." He looked up at her with eyes that held decades of loneliness. "I can't retire again, Zara. The galaxy needs its guardian, whether it wants one or not." "Then I'm coming with you," she said firmly. David shook his head. "It's too dangerous. The things I fight exist outside normal reality. You could be killed just by observing some of them." "Then teach me," Zara insisted. "If humans can be enhanced to fight these threats, maybe other species can too. Maybe you don't have to be alone anymore." For the first time since his return, genuine hope flickered in David's eyes. "The process is dangerous," he warned. "And it changes you fundamentally. You wouldn't be fully Velkan anymore." Zara's 4 arms wrapped around him again, pulling him close. "I wouldn't be fully anything anymore," she said quietly. "Except yours." 3 months later, David and Zara stood together on the observation deck of a new ship, sleek, black, and equipped with technologies that officially didn't exist. The vessel was a wedding gift from the Galactic Council, though they would never admit to building it. Officially, it was listed as a diplomatic courier ship. Unofficially, it was a weapons platform designed to house Earth's guardian and his new partner. The enhancement process had worked, though Zara was still adjusting to her new capabilities. Her scales now held a faint luminescence that spoke of quantum manipulation potential, and her enhanced neural pathways let her perceive dimensions that normal beings couldn't see. She was no longer fully Velkan, but she was something new, a hybrid of species and science that could stand beside David in the dark. "Any regrets?" David asked, watching the stars wheel past their viewport. Zara considered the question carefully. She had left behind her diplomatic career, her normal life, even her basic biology. Ahead lay years of fighting threats that the galaxy would never know existed, protecting civilizations that would never thank them. "Just one," she said finally. David's expression grew concerned. "What?" "We never finished planting those flowers in the back garden." David's laughter was the sound of a man remembering joy after decades of darkness. He pulled her close, and for a moment they were just 2 people in love, standing together against the infinite. Outside their ship, the galaxy spun peacefully on its axis, never knowing that its guardians were watching over it. In the deep dark between stars, ancient things stirred and plotted, but they would find no easy prey. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift it could never repay, a protector forged from sacrifice and tempered by love. And in the quiet spaces between battles, David tended his new garden aboard their ship, teaching Zara the names of flowers that bloomed in starlight. It wasn't the peaceful retirement he had once dreamed of, but it was something better, a purpose shared with someone who understood the weight he carried. The galaxy was safe, the Guardians stood watch, and in the darkness between worlds, monsters learned once again to fear the light of human determination and the blade that could cut through reality itself. Their love story continued, written in stardust and sealed with the promise that some things, hope, peace, the simple joy of growing things together were worth any sacrifice to protect.